motion is actually as stated. If the council has an option of dealing with this motion and perhaps defeating it, if that's the will of the council, and putting forward a new motion that reflects the intent.
Okay, Councilor German.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I hear what's been said in the last while, it sounds like we as a council are getting into designing the process at this point. And that's something that we all said we didn't particularly want to do. We want to put that out to the citizens and make it a citizen-led process. We all understand that that has to have some external expertise to guide it and to structure it. The reason I would favor seeing it going back to the consultant is not to have the consultant work in a vacuum, but the consultants are here tonight. They have heard the debate, and I would expect the consultants to probably hold a couple of open houses or similar to invite ideas from the general public, and then to present a process that can be structured to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. You know, it may be that they recommend some sort of committee, standing committee on the part of council. That's, when you have a standing committee that's organized under the auspices of council, there's immediately a direct connection there. And it is potentially problematic. I don't know what it would be, but it potentially is. So I'm certainly not ready at this tonight to say, yes, we'll have a standing committee of council that's going to govern this. No, you would have to have a very precise understanding of what the terms of reference would be and how this is going to operate so that the committee of council, potentially involving council, didn't dominate the process. So I think the best thing at this stage is to ask the consultant to say, here, you've heard what council wants to do. Council wants to morph this into an independent process led by the community in a manner that accomplishes the objectives that I think, with the additions pointed out tonight, are pretty much well canvassed in that respect. So we're looking at what's the best process and the best way to structure that process to do that. Consultants probably have a lot more expertise in that respect than I do. And they are well positioned to contact the citizens, work with the citizens, come up with the terms of reference that council ultimately has to approve. Thank you.
Can we? Any hands up next?
Sorry.
Any hands up next?
Are we able to make a friendly amendment to the motion then that would be a directive to the consultant to engage in a conversation with our residents on forming such a committee?
I would be happy to take that amendment if the seconder is in favor. Sure. I think that's a friendly amendment. I don't think it has to be formal.
Councilor Rickland?
Tell me what that means. Having a conversation with our residents. Who are the residents?
Very good. So the consultant, the issue will be sent back to the consultants for adjustment on the feedback we've heard this evening, with the additional item that perhaps they would use a mechanism such as a town hall or a series of committee meetings, visit the community associations, contact our resident groups that are out there. This can be done quite quickly, and then hold a meeting with our residents and those who are interested in this topic to see how they feel such a citizens committee could be structured and what kind of draft terms of reference they would embrace, and then bring that back to council. Is it clear?
Sounds good. Thanks.
So we have an amendment on the floor. Any discussion?
We were, Mr. Mayor, we were treating that as a
Friendly amendment?
friendly amendment to the main motion. Yes, thank you.
Is there any more discussion? Councilor Platt?
We seem to be allowing second times. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think it's really important, and why I'm going to speak only just very briefly, is there is no doubt in my mind the consultant is involved in the process. Please do not think that my suggestion that we go with an advisory committee that then undertakes this work on our behalf by application to be on this committee, would not use this consultant. I think what we're trying to do is jumpstart the process if we defeat this and then create the committee. The committee could be created and then engage with the consultant on how to proceed, not ask the consultant to suggest how we create a committee. So that's where I would say, please do not misconstrue that I am not in favor of using the consultant. I am, but I'm saying that we drive it, not the consultant's recommendations. Thank you.
Any more speakers? Okay, so I also won't be supporting this as it has come forward for some of the reasons that I've stated before, and I'll repeat some of them. In the last 6 months, we have engaged our residents at a near zero level on this. This is an important thing for them. It's a valid question that was brought forward by the previous council, and they haven't been involved with this. And we're going to go back to this consultant, not follow them again. I haven't heard any interest from councillors to date about chairing this committee, and it's open to them. I'd like anyone now to put forward if they are interested in chairing this committee. This Governance and Cooperation Committee, I think it's an important committee. It was part of my inaugural address. Councillor Brown has said that she will support any committee that I put forward. The community charter allows the mayor to strike standing committees that are in the best interest of the municipality, and these committees sit under council, and they simply make recommendations to council. So what we would have is a group of residents engaged in this process that would have access to these consultants, that would simply be making recommendations to this council for the council to weigh on. This is how all of our committees work. And essentially what we're saying here, by not supporting this in this fashion, is that we have a lot of faith in the advisory committees and all the members of the public that we put on there, but we don't have faith in the residents that we put on this committee, which is probably the most important committee for them because it is their government. And so I put this forward in the inaugural address. I talked with the administrator. I've talked with some of the councillors. I intend to strike this committee, and I tend to ask people to sit on the committee, invite people to sit on the committee. I would like councillors to sit on that committee, and I would like that committee to be productive. But so far, I've heard very, very little support for this committee, and it seems like this vote is going to go forward, and we're going to engage the consultant, and the consultant's going to be asking the residents what kind of committee, when there's already one waiting in the wings to do this kind of work that's not going to cost much. And I'm disappointed that there's such opposition to it, and that it's being treated very tritely, because these are standing committees of council. They are very, very important. They have important work to do, and it was not my intention to create a terms of reference for it. It was not my intention to drive the committee, but to hand the power back to the citizens that handed it to me to strike these committees. And so I think that's very important. So I won't be supporting. Excuse me, I'm speaking. Please, let me finish my statements and then we'll move forward. So I will not be supporting this motion for those reasons. But rest assured, this committee will be struck so that the residents can weigh in on matters that pertain to the terms of reference that they will develop, and they will make recommendations from council. And if council then wants to turn down those recommendations, they can, or they can support those recommendations. But this is a fundamental nature of democracy and how our government is structured here. It is laid out for us in the community charter. I took many platforms from the candidates and melded them together to do my inaugural address. And based on the ballot question and the interest, I put that forward as an idea in a horse before the cart fashion. So, is there no more discussion? I'll call the question. Councillor Haynes?
I'll talk briefly to this. So, Mr. Mayor, is the image then that such a standing committee would receive reports from this citizens committee and consultant and then bring that forward, or is it a standalone and separate enterprise to the one we're currently talking about?
It would have to be based on the way the motion has been structured.
Because except for the placement of a councillor on this committee, the structure is very close to the standing committees you're describing, except there is no single councillor or two councillors on it. I'm not quite sure how it functions differently.
It could be one or many councillors. It could be members of the public. Staff could be taking minutes like our advisory committees, and we could And it could engage anyone that the council likes to. Simply put, the council would entertain something from the committee that say, we would like to engage this consultant, or we would like to do this, and the council would deliberate on that. It would be important work of council delegated to this committee that has the terms of reference set up, and we wouldn't be sitting here, although I enjoyed this discussion, talking about how to do things when we can have it done at a committee level, like your committee, or many of the councillors' committees. That's how it would work. It would be a committee. And I think it would be a very productive committee and it would have the interest of the public. Hence, Councillor Borland.
Can we go around again, or?
We're on the second round. Go ahead.
Committee. Who sets up the standing committee?
The mayor sets up the standing committee.
Okay. And I think that was the concern.
Of whose concern?
It would be my concern that how a standing committee would be set up. I guess from my point, I just want it as open, as broad as possible. And this is why the process we're looking at now, we are opening it up to the community and allowing them to decide how a committee will be structured. And I think that's important.
I'd love to have your feedback on the standing committee, but to date, this has been the only feedback that I've heard on this. So it would be great to actually craft that together and then put that forward. But I believe it needs to exist and has members of the public on it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next speaker? Okay. Seeing no more speakers, I'll then call the question on this motion. All in favor? All opposed? Councillor Plant and myself are opposed. The motion passes. So before we move to the next item, as I said earlier, I will be striking the standing committee, and the administrator and I are going to have to work together to figure out how this committee can work and exist while the council is giving other items to consultants and other unknown citizen communities outside. Hopefully we can coordinate this at some point in the future, but at this point in time, there is no initiative here and there's no intent here to do that. And I would like to ask members of this council to come forward to me through email and express their interest in sitting on this committee. I would rather not sit on it myself, as it was my idea, and I don't want to lead it, but I would like a member in the future to have a discussion with me and to do this.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we set aside some time as a council to discuss the nature of these standing committees with you and how they might go forward.
All right, thank you.
Is there a seconder for that?
So, can I ask for some clarification on the motion?
Councillor Moore.
Whether it's in a council meeting or in an in-camera meeting, the point is for us to have a discussion amongst us to understand more clearly how these standing committees could be formed and how we might support the mayor in them. I don't mind if it's in the camera, it's a council meeting or a committee of the whole. I am not attached to any of those processes.
I'd be quite happy to second the motion if it's to have the discussion at an open council meeting.
Yes.
Okay, the motion's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Councillor Workland?
Thank you very much. I don't know if I'm the only one that's confused. I thought we just passed a motion. And the motion we just passed, how does it fit in with the motion that we're talking about now? We're talking about creating a standing committee?
No, that's not correct. We're just talking about having a discussion.
We're just having a discussion?
Correct.
Nothing wrong with that. Thank you.
That wasn't my motion. My motion was to have a meeting to discuss how we might understand and create standing committees that the mayor is bringing forward, planning to bring forward.
Any more discussion? Councillor Bryce?
The risk of stating the obvious, I thought that the whole process we were going to go through was talking about our governance. And so at some point, we will know whether or not advisory committees, standing committees, committees of the whole, whatever, that'll be all part and parcel to it. I mean, I think we can have this discussion, but nothing is lost by it. But I think we have to remember that we're looking at opening up everything. We're like saying, nothing is sacred. the way we do it now may not be the way that we do it in the future. So I think, fair to have a discussion, but I think that to start putting stuff in stone at this stage of the game may be premature.
I don't think we're talking about putting things in stone. I think we're just talking about having a discussion at this point. Any more hands? Councillor Plant?
Thank you. I'd just like to make an amendment that this happens at the next council meeting. Fine. So I will not make that amendment. And I will speak to just the content. I think, Mr. Mayor, your inaugural address was 6 months ago, and many of us are very interested in moving this forward and hearing what you have in mind. We've all in this chamber are aware we've had some interesting times to start up, and this has not been on the front burner, but it's time to put it there. And so my spirit of having it at our next council meeting was to get on with it. I think you want to get on with it, I want to get on with it, I want to know what you had in mind, and although I appreciate Councillor Bryce's comments that everything was under review, I would say in the same way that our council participation, council procedures bylaw was updated, and it is also going to be under the examination if it's not working. But I see no harm in having that discussion and potentially starting those, and if council finds from the public that those are horrible ideas, then so be it, but let's get on with it. Thank you.
Any more discussion? Seeing no one call the question, all in favor? Thank you for your hands. Councillor Haynes, Plant, Murdoch, Bryce, and Brown. And opposed? So the motion passes unanimously. All right. Thank you for that, Councillor Haynes. And we'll look forward to doing that at a future meeting of council. I will have to do some work in preparation of that, obviously. I would appreciate any concerns from council members coming to me via my email. And I do want to apologize to the public for taking so long in establishing these, but the spyware episode has incurred a huge amount of time on my behalf, and a lot of people got behind it, but I was simply been in a catch-up position, so I'm eager to get on with these standing committees as well. They were in my inaugural address, and I think they are a key part of this council's mandate for the next 3 to 5 years. So with that, we'll move to the next item, F1. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This next item is the it's a recommendation from the Finance Audit and Personnel Standing Committee and the utility bill penalties. The recommendation of that committee is that council approve an amendment to the water utility bylaw and also to approve council policy to implement a one-time utility bill penalty reversal with conditions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Recommendations.